You're live.
Okay, welcome, folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions Committee. It is Thursday, 14th. We've got a new draft of S-193 before us, is 6.1. It will not be the last draft because there was one piece that when we sat down with Katie to do new language on DOC for monitoring out in the community, I forgot to mention that we were also going to allow DOC to do security in the front end of a forensic facility if it's located on branch campus. So that language has to be incorporated. So the first place where it would be incorporated is on page 1, which is legislative intent. So we need to flag that we need to add that language. I don't know if we want to wait and have a conversation with Katie, or we try to do something as a committee now. Leave that up for committee discussion.
Oh, I think we'll mess it up.
We want to wait for.
Yeah, we should wait.
We're live right now.
Okay,
We're talking about them.
okay. So I don't want to forget that, so we'll get back to Katie. on-
And that's where it's gotta go in the intent.
Well, if you
Yes,
read the
yeah.
language,
Staff.
may provide security services for the facility around the outside perimeter of the forensic facility, if it's co-located on the grounds of the correctional. In that situation, we also want the front of the house to monitor the public coming in and going out. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like when you go into a correctional facility now,
Just
you know, you're screened, you have to store your stuff in a locker.
TSA.
Right, TSA. So on page 2, where you see the highlights of blue, those are both from House, those could be from House Human Services Committee, or it could be from us. So on page 2, this is from House Human Services Committee, that they're gonna have to work with House Judiciary. They want to put back that folks who are under Act 248, which is your IDD folks, would not be subject to the forensic facility.
And that's what we were all on board with yesterday, right?
Well, we're not really involved in this.
No,
This
when
is,
you asked them.
well, they've been going back and forth.
Okay,
Okay, so what's highlighted in blue came over from the Senate in S-193. House Judiciary wanted to strike that language. House Human Services Committee is wanting to keep that language in. So that's why that's highlighted in blue, because House Human Services Committee is offering to House Judiciary Committee that they want this language put
What's the logic behind that?
You don't want IDD folks to be held in a forensic facility.
I think the logic is they cannot be brought to competence.
They're not held now. So
It's not held at all?
it's not, well, that's under Act 248. It's not our lane. It's not our world, but my understanding is they would be housed in residential treatment facilities.
That was my understanding from upstairs, the testimony. that I
Yeah.
heard.
Do we have a sense of how much that shrinks the population of the?
One by one.
Yeah.
This is between Human Services and Judiciary. It's not us.
Okay, Yep,
It's not our lane, but Katie highlighted changes
So we
the
know.
House Human Services Committee wanted and our changes. So I just want to bring that to your attention. It's highlighted in blue, but it did not come from us.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just go through,
Looking for blue,
looking for blue.
because the yellow was the stuff from yesterday, right?
Yeah, yellow is stuff, well, we went through
we went through.
yesterday. There's some changes there. I don't. If you go to forensic facility definitions, section 5, page 20. Katie mentioned that for the forensic facility, what it means, Agency of Human Services provides for secure competency restoration. She wanted to add evaluation, stabilization, treatment, and care of persons because we've used those terminologies throughout the
Mhm.
bill.
Like
And
it,
she
yeah.
said it needs to be added there. So that came from Katie. On page 21, this is what we need to focus in on. Where Secretary of Human Services would establish and operate the locked facility and use seek competency, restoration, evaluation, stabilization, treatment, the whole bit. The Department of Corrections shall not play a role in the forensics facility's operation and the provision of services. And she added, or internal security. So I don't know if that covers what we are looking at.
I mean, front of the house could be considered internal security.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You mean to say here, we mean to say here, like within the living spaces, right?
Basically.
and program space.
Right, right. So, or
Yes.
internal security beyond the admittance area or something like that.
Yeah,
Program space or occupant facing or,
Well, this is the negative, this is the inverse.
right,
So
right.
everything but to Sean's, the TSA area.
Dig it.
and this is where I'm saying we're coming into this. It's nothing to do with Katie or Lich Council or anything. It's our worlds in DOC and our world in the Capitol Bill of construction. We use very different language
Yeah.
than what you do in other policy committees, and that's what we're trying to meld here.
Yeah.
So we need to flag this, that internal security, does that really cover just living spaces and program space, but does that also cover your egress and ingress
Right.
at the front of the building?
So you're thinking we just need to be more specific with that? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a flag there. And then, top of page 22, I think, yeah, this is just, tracking language again, that the forensic facility would provide for safe competency restoration,
Yeah.
evaluation, treatment. That was picked up by Ledge Council.
Okay.
Page 23, this again is forensic facility. This came from Human Services, I believe. Implement a process for reporting instances of death or serious bodily injury to residents who are in the facility. So that's not us, that came from upstairs.
And DOC to their, they do have a process like that, but if they're not inside of this, then the other people
Yeah.
need to have something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, 10-4.
My understanding, that makes sense. Page 27, again, this is a feasibility plan for the facility. Page 27, again, it's talking about on line 8.
Yeah.
Shall assume, the feasibility plans shall assume that operation staffing program shall be provided by agents of human services, with the exception that DOC shall not play a role in its operation, the provisions of services for internal security. And that again needs to be cleaned up for internal security.
It's not the right words, but internal security, are we just trying to keep DOC from the handling of those who are inside? Or maybe it's a better word, but
We don't want DOC to be in the living units or programming. That's up to the folks who are providing the services. The security is on the periphery of the building,
Right.
outside. And it's on the front end of the building where the public comes in and comes out for screening and security there. But they're not in the facility, in the living units or program units or dining area or whatever. That's our intent, right?
Yep.
Internal security doesn't cover that.
Yeah.
It's too broad, or
Right.
doesn't cover what we want.
so the personal interaction with the individuals inside, we don't want them to have that.
Yes.
Right.
I just have a quick question. So just like with and this is specific, so they wouldn't go, like if this place was set up at down in Springfield, And it was built on, out there in one of those spaces where there's water and sewer and electric all ready to go. They would not go to the dining hall that all the other people go to. They would have dining inside this,
Yeah.
like if there's only 5 or 6 of them.
We haven't gone down that minutiae.
I don't know if that's too specific or,
Well, that's kind of the point I want to make. We are not,
We're not gonna commingle the population.
and this bill does not design a facility. This bill asks the Agency of Human Services to contemplate a facility that is not in a correctional facility, and these are the guardrails.
okay,
That's
gotcha.
all, that's
All
all.
right, so we don't,
This is, I mean,
And then if.
I'll say more about what we're doing.
Next session, we get the plan, and then the legislature acts on it, and it goes forward with it. There is a definition of the forensic facility, and it allows rules to be promulgated, which is where you really do that minutia
okay,
in the
gotcha.
rules.
Just, you had said dining area, so I just like it just clicked inside my head. That's all. All right,
The
thanks.
infirmary, you got the infirmary,
Right.
you've got the dining hall, program space.
And it's too early for us to be saying that the plan should be for X number of beds?
We don't know that. We've asked for the.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it seems like
We've asked for the feasibility plan to come back with a number of beds, the cost of construction,
it's all part of
and the
that.
cost of operations.
Yeah.
And fit up. Then they have to present that where they are in the development of that plan to Joint Justice Committee in August and in November. And then
But then I'm confused again, because right now we're only dealing with, on a interim basis, a very small subset. To have a plan for that small subset is not the answer, in my personal opinion. It should be including a lot more people that are mentally deficient.
that's,
So,
that's,
Don't we need to set that parameter? If we're asking them to put a plan together, I would think you'd need to have some kind of guidelines as to how many people are really involved.
it's up to them to make that determination and present it to the legislature next session.
Sounds like my language got
Yeah,
vetoed by the
your,
other.
your
parties.
language was dead on arrival to do that.
Well,
I-
so it's a waste.
Oh, to be clear, I think this whole thing is an illusion of public safety to some degree, so,
Well, the long-term plan, I agree with you.
yeah.
On the other hand, if we're doing something better than what we're doing right now, then that's the value I see. But if we keep churning on this and don't put basic guidelines of how many people, which people are in there.
That's judiciary's decision.
That's judiciary.
That's not our
And then
decision.
the plan comes through next year. And the legislature then will have this
Judiciary.
conversation all over.
Okay. Judiciary's the one.
They're going by the governor's proposal. A lot of this is the governor's proposal in terms of who would pick up a bed. Pretty limited. And that's the governor's proposal.
And I have zero doubt that we are opening a door to 5 or 6 people, whatever it is. And they are going to say, it's working so good for those 7 people within our correctional facilities. Let's just do it for everybody who's in our correctional facilities.
Mission
And
creep.
6. What's that?
Mission
Mission
creep.
creep. Absolutely. That is precisely what we're creating here. I'll say more about that in a little bit.
I have a speech for that.
We all have to go for that. Already working.
Want to read it ahead of time?
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait.
But in terms of who goes to a forensic facility in this language comes from the administration.
Yes.
This is the administration. In terms of who
And
goes.
it's, yeah. It's just opening the door wide enough.
Yeah, so page 28.
Wait, hold on.
I guess I don't see any more blue.
Behind page 27, there's an or.
Right, that's the.
About that,
It's the
yeah,
same
okay.
thing.
Yep.
Now,
28 is where we went to address the monitoring in the community. Oh, and before you see the blue, the yellow on 10 again, we've got to correct that for front of the house security.
Oh, that didn't get changed.
Right, I forgot to tell Katie about that.
That's a mistake.
I thought of it last night. Shoot, I forgot to tell her. While I was eating my dinner, I thought of it. Okay. So page 28, line 16 through 18, this is when someone is discharged and is monitored. And it says a resident discharge and community monitoring plan for each department. Now, this is their feasibility plan coming back. They need to address this. So when a person is discharged and they have a monitoring plan from a department, could be mental health or it could be Dale. Then those departments have to develop in consultation with DOC. Resident discharge and community monitoring, but DOC doesn't get involved in resident discharge. And community monitoring.
Community monitoring.
Yeah, see, that's where we run into that's not DOC's role to do resident discharge in the monitoring plan. They don't do
Well, they don't do the actual discharge, but they do the community monitoring.
So they're developed in consultation.
yeah, but it talks about resident discharge and community monitoring. So part of that
So-
discharge plan would be conditions that would be set by Department of Mental Health and Department of Dale.
It's a little awkward.
It's awkward.
Okay. So it needs to be cleaned up.
I wonder if we could get Hillary or Eric involved language, because this is out of Katie's lane to deal with this. The intent is that those departments that the person is under the custody of, which would be DMH or Dale, maybe Department of Health, but not usually, they would do the discharge and community monitoring plan. The issue is when they are being monitored out there by those departments, that the department could have help from DOC in the actual monitoring in the community. That's the distinction there. And I don't think the language picks that up.
It's more than development, it's actually facilitating.
Sorry, Chair, I think I need to hear that one more time. So the idea behind this language is that Human Services is proposing that.
It's judiciary. Judiciary wants to see when a person is discharged
Yep.
from a facility and they're under DMH or they're under Dale, they have concerns that DMH or Dale cannot do proper monitoring once the person's out in the community, and they want the backup of DOC.
Well, yeah, say that part again, wanting the backup.
They want it.
They want CMP to do this.
They want
Okay, you could just say that, yeah. Okay,
supervision out in the community.
okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood.
But we were thinking they could do it in consultation with or collaboration with or something.
But as Kevin says, that's not consultation,
Meadow
it's
tomorrow.
consultation or whatever other word you want to use.
But
I'll bet you that's what they want.
Effectuation.
We don't necessarily want it, so.
Right.
But DOC
So talk about it rather than leave it vague.
Well,
DOC is not involved in the
Yeah.
discharge plan. DOC is not involved in what's needed for community monitoring plan. They're not involved in that. They're only involved in helping those other departments and supervising those folks in the community.
yeah, this certainly doesn't read that way,
No, it
to your point. Yeah. Yeah.
So Troy, you were gonna say something?
No, not yet.
And we're okay just leaving monitoring as it is and let them suss out the details, because
It is.
if
the plan.
there's one thing I've learned, in this committee, there's monitoring and there's monitoring,
Yeah.
If people are expecting this to be active as opposed to passive monitoring, they're not gonna get that, right? Like,
Well, what Martin initially said, just put an electronic bracelet on them. And I said, Martin, there's all layers to that. That's not as simple in DOC's world. It's not as simple. We went through this with pretrial supervision.
Yeah, and even if there was, if you're expecting them to apprehend somebody in the midst of a crime, that doesn't happen, right? Like, you learn about it after. It's,
Well, and just to make sure I understand, to follow on Connor's point, we are just though talking about monitoring. We're not talking about provision of any kind of services, are we?
Oh, that's up to
Yeah.
the other departments that would provide that. So is there a scenario where someone is required to go? Now, some of these folks could be incompetent, but they're not a danger.
Mhm.
It could be out in the community. They could be incompetent. Damn trial. Doesn't mean they're always incompetent, but they're not a danger to public safety. They're not a danger to the community. They could be released.
Yes.
So they want some monitoring of those folks. Now, play this out, if someone at some point is incompetent, are they going to abide by the rules?
Or we talked about the reason they're now competent, or the reason they're not a danger is because of treatment, medication, whatever. So the folks doing the monitoring are making sure that that treatment, medication, or whatever is persisting in the community. I have a problem with DOC doing that sort of monitoring. That's a caseworker's
That's
monitoring.
caseworkers, but I think the concern is, and this is where language is so important. The concern is, I think, if the person becomes violent or flees, they want the backup of DOC.
Right.
That's where they want DOC.
But don't they
That's not
report that
monitoring.
to DOC, right?
No, of
Oh, they don't.
course not. Because the person's not under DOC custody.
Oh, at that point.
They're not under DOC custody. They're going to be under Department of Mental Health or Dale. They're not under DOC custody. The forensic facility is not under DOC.
Well,
Well,
Yes,
in this bill, they're not
Yeah.
under DOC.
they are.
In this bill, they're not under DOC.
or our guidelines, our guardrails state that we want to see a plan where DOC would not be here.
Private services for the entity that caused the
I
shocks.
want to see the other plan too, though.
No,
You don't want to see the other.
it's
plan.
not in here. Yeah, it's not in here. The side by side is not in.
What, I mean, it seems to me like, just having had relatives with mental health issues, that the first thing you're gonna see is somebody who has been stabilized, they're taking their meds, they're doing good. They get released, they go off their meds.
Right.
That doesn't seem like something that DOC is qualified to deal with. I mean, they can be, security or whatever you want to call it. But so putting what I think is an obvious point aside, what would successful community monitoring look like if you're concerned about someone taking their meds? Yeah.
So we had, the Defender General introduced a model with his testimony that we don't need PNP to do this. We need GMH Dale
Yes.
to create a system of people. And it doesn't have to be very big because we're talking about 6 or 7 potential people. This can be 3 or 4 people whose job it is to monitor in that fashion. That's not in here.
Yeah.
That's not in here.
So let me give you a pushback, is that the feeling from House Judiciary is the current system, particularly when it's under DMH, there isn't very good monitoring out there. That's their concern. So they want the backup of DOC.
Just give it to DOC.
The other thing they use, there is up in Chittenden County and Healy, I think somebody sent this to me because it was talked about Judiciary Committee that DOC is working in this program called FACT, F-A-C-T. They're engaging a lot of community service providers and they think that could be replicated. And I said to Martin, I said, well, that's up in Chittenden County, but if these forensic folks that you're going to discharge, they're going to be scattered throughout the state. How are you going to implement that throughout the state? So, well, that's a good point.
PNP is how they're going to implement that throughout the state.
So we want to be very specific that the monitoring is for public safety monitoring, not for case management. Is what I'm picking up from the committee.
But to do that in the absence of the others, to wait for a problem to occur, and, you know, have them also on hand to deal with it.
I think we're gonna, and this is nothing against Katie at all, but I think we're gonna have to bring in ledge counsel that's used to working in the DOC to make sure we have the right language there. That makes sense. I can reach out to Eric, to reach out to Hillary to help with Katie. Okay, and then on page 29. I wonder if this was, did Connor and Mary, did this come from us, or is this more of a cleanup in terms of?
Well, this kind of came from us because we were talking
Yeah,
about the
this
interim plan, but she thought it was better to pair it in A and B since both were talking about like what happens in the meantime.
So the plan needs to put forward opportunities and cost assessment for the facility population to receive the following services while the development of the forensic facility is pending. Placement and out-of-state residents, and, it's not an or, competency restoration services within a Vermont correctional facility provided by an entity that is not under contract with the Department of Corrections. So Kevin highlighted, we didn't want WellPath to provide the services. So this is the carve out to make sure WellPath is not providing that service for competency restorations.
We didn't want anybody contracted by DMH to provide medical services to also do competency determination or
DOC.
DOC.
Right,
So it's, right now it's well paid, but
right. So B is the attempt to take care of that. Competency restoration service within, this is currently in the interim, within a Vermont correctional facility provided by an entity that is not under contract with the Department of Corrections.
Doesn't necessarily preclude WellPath though, does it? AHS can contract with WellPath?
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
well, hold on, let me read this again.
This is in the interim.
By an entity that is not under contract. So if WellPath is under contract
But
with the
it's-
Department of Corrections, I read this as them not being allowed to do this. Even,
Okay, yeah, I see that.
yeah,
But is that they're not allowed because of the current circumstance, which could easily change?
right. So DOC now goes back to who was the previous.
Yeah,
provider,
exactly, yeah.
Then they could switch, but this gets rid of the opportunity for the folks who are providing and profiting from
Oh, I see.
providing medical care to DOC custody people, also making a determination as to whether or not that population is going to increase.
Right.
So I think Troy's gonna talk about this, but I also have concerns about just like, yeah, normalizing this happening. You know, it might create incentive for AHS to tank any feasibility plans if the status quo under this providing in the facilities is acceptable to them, right?
Yeah.
I wonder, like, if there could be a tweak where competency restoration program that will sunset in 2028.
Yeah,
An end date where at least it would have to be reconsidered by this legislature then, you know?
yeah.
Sense?
Let me do my spiel now.
I didn't want to steal your thunder.
No, it
Preemptive.
springboards nicely on that. And I just want us to go into this with eyes wide open. I want us to understand precisely what we are doing with this amendment to the judiciary bill. Because it is not anywhere, and Kevin, you said something yesterday that I got everything I wanted. This is nothing what I wanted. Zero, nothing. And I want to explain why. Most of our involvement with this bill is hypothetical. We are asking the agency to, Agency of Human Services to come to us with a plan, a feasibility plan of creating a facility that is separate from DOC. That is all hypothetical. We are not requiring them to create that sort of facility. We are not saying within 10 years this facility will be built. All we are asking them to do is create a plan, and they do not want to do that. When we suggested that, they have all but said in this room, that is not feasible. That feasibility plan is zero, not feasible. All right, so almost all of what we're doing here is hypothetical. And I want to say this clearly, my concern is not whether some individuals require secure placement during competency restoration. That absolutely is required. Secure placement is absolutely critical to the public safety components of this. My concern is that the draft now, with what we added on the front side of this, does increasingly operationalize competency restoration within our correctional facilities. That is what we have done with these new amendments, while postponing a truly independent forensic facility that is separate from DOC. So the newest language now explicitly contemplates competency restoration services occurring within our facilities. We have given them permission to do that. Even if those services are provided by an outside entity not currently contracted by DOC, right? We have created a very significant structural shift from where at least my position was when we started doing this. Very significant structural shift. We are back. We have returned to embedding the Department of Corrections into the planning, the consultation, and the security framework of forensics work. And I do worry, and this is why I appreciate Connor's suggestion of a sunset, that we are creating a transitional model, and we're calling it transitional, that contains very little practical or political incentive to ever transition beyond a correctional infrastructure, right? We have given them permission to bring competency restoration, competency coaching, I'm going to call it that, into our correctional facilities. And then just think about it, a new facility. That's all they have to do. And once competency restoration, competency coaching is operationalized, which is what we're doing inside our prisons, future administrations will be able to say that's good enough. We got this in place. We're not going to play around with a $50 million structure. It's no longer a truly independent then forensic facility. That is my worry. And that is what this does. That is precisely what this does. Yeah. We have given away any leverage to actually build a true restorative forensics facility. We've given it away.
Because in a way, like, that is the Senate version, B, right?
Yeah.
It's aside from DOC not being the entity that contracts with it.
So the concern that I heard yesterday was, what do we do in the interim before we do a facility?
And I don't doubt that we need to do something.
We need to do something. So what do we do? Do we have?
No, not for a while.
It's not us, that's.
No, I said we're not going to New Hampshire, that's for sure.
I'd still like to hear about that. policy.
Is there, I just want to put this on the table for thoughts. Is there a way that, I see too. Is there a way that we could, in the interim, for those folks that DMH, Dale needs to provide those services in the correctional facility for those folks who are there now until the new facility is put in place?
Ask the question again.
For those folks who are currently in the correctional facility, that we've heard from staff.
Yeah.
We've heard directly from staff, they don't belong here.
Yeah.
They should not be here,
Yeah, we all heard it.
and we don't have the training. And take care of these folks. We can do it, but it's not appropriate. We've heard that directly
Yes.
from staff when we visited facilities. So the concern we have is we know we have a handful of folks that could be there for a year, could be there for a year and a half, not getting any services. We want to do something so those folks are getting services. We don't want the services provided by GLC. We don't want the services provided by WellPay. The services should be provided by DMH or Dale or Department of Health, correct?
Correct.
How do we
Agreed.
translate that into language?
Well, do you just like provided by, you could scratch the entity that is not in a contract, just say the departments? Provided by DMH and Dale.
But they could just say, WellPath is doing this now on our behalf.
Yeah, you probably need another tweak in there, but I would spell out who you want to do it maybe rather than who you do not want to do it.
I think you have to be very specific.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested in the idea of a sunset that keeps their feet to the fire for,
That's why I think you call it a competency restoration program due to sunset in 2028, because that forces the legislature to look at it again. And if the legislature goes that way, they're probably going to go that way anyways, right? But they have to discuss it.
because I don't disagree that there is a gap right now.
Mhm.
There's absolutely a gap right now. Because there is no, and I think this is Kim's language, there is no competency restoration legal framework in place right now. There's none. We've asked the question of why, and I think that's the answer.
Because there's no legislation to, we're not, no one has asked them or forced them to do it, right?
Right. And we've sort of gone around trying to get them to do it, and they have said directly they can't do the plan. So if you could just identify yourselves.
Madam Chair, for the record, Susan Aronoff from the Developmental Disabilities Council. I don't know if there's a way to look at what happened with Act 137, but I was just saying that
I didn't want
it's
to,
not that the legislature has not directed the state to develop certain things like
Thank you for bringing
the
that up.
alternatives. So if there's some other way to either.
What is 130? Can you summarize
they
137?
required, the legislature required them to
I
do
can't hear
that.
you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Act 137 from 2024, it directed Dale, for instance, to have a plan for community alternatives. What would they need to prevent elopement and things to have security, things like that. And in that same bill, I believe there was language directing the development of a forensic facility. So, you know, for some of us, it's so much the thing that won't go away. And we keep thinking you're on a path and it's gonna, and then they come back with, you know, because really 2 years ago, the furor was, we have people with developmental disabilities and corrections. Oh my God. Hair on fire, we have to get them out. I mean, really, a commissioner was crying in the testimony upstairs in Teresa's committee because there was a woman with developmental disabilities and corrections. That was the status 2 years ago. And now the plan is to put everyone in corrections. I think it's really a financial issue, and honestly,
Oh,
the state can't
It's more
afford.
financial,
We know that, yeah.
it's to hide it in DOC's budget,
Yes,
so that's what it is.
so it's tough to have the financial crisis borne on the backs of the most vulnerable people in the
Yes.
state.
Yes.
But you're saying Act 130
Act 137 of 2024.
directed a plan to be put in place?
Yes,
From the administration,
yes.
and they didn't want to do it, even though the advocate community, I was gonna bring that up, but then I didn't. But the advocate community kept pushing the administration to do it, and they didn't do it.
In my opinion, there's just been a failure of leadership at the Agency of Human Services on several issues. You know, Vermont's the last state to come into compliance with Medicaid rules that came into effect in 2024. So on several issues, not just this, House people, but specifically on this, the Agency of Human Services, which is an agency of one, with VOC, with Department of Health, under the umbrella, has not brought those parties together. And there's a great new commissioner at Dale now, more than willing, Dr. Jill Bowen. She's got the skills and the ability. She could use some money.
And was there any money in the FY 27 budget in Dale for this?
Not that I'm aware of, but that would be a place to put.
So if the administration really wanted to do this, their proposed budget in January would have included funding for this. And the DOC budget was not increased to provide this. It's a shell game,
Mhm.
really what's going on.
Isn't that the same thing with a new women's correctional facility and refurbished or improved educational buildings? I mean, there's not enough money for any of these big projects. So we're spitting in the wind and the wind's blowing at us. So let's be realistic.
Tell you one thing, though, there never will be enough money for them, right?
Exactly.
We either got to spend it or, it's.
So, I mean, we've spent weeks on this, knowing that it's not gonna happen. Is what you're telling us.
Oh, what is happening is we're bringing
No, they're already there,
competency coaching into our prisons.
Oh,
That's
yes.
what's happening.
which is better than what's going on right now.
Grudgingly, yes.
Yeah, but you gotta be realistic. Realistically, we're not gonna be able to do any of these big things unless the state of Vermont changes and we have an influx of funding. So you gotta do what we can do to improve the situation.
Go ahead, sis.
Susan Aronoff, Vermont Developmental Disabilities Council. For the population that cannot be restored, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, dementia, brain injury, housing them indefinitely in corrections is not only probably the worst thing you could do for them from a civil rights perspective, it's probably the most expensive route for the state.
Sure.
The price expense that the state operates in the community, what Representative Donahue and I figured out a couple of years ago in a summer study, bless her, was that the community system needed a couple tweaks to have hands-on emergency and voluntary procedures in the community that they're prevented from doing them, to have secure perimeters, to have some of the technology that would keep the community safe, keep the staff safe. You know, I used to bring up my experience with community programs that had safe rooms for staff, and I was sort of treated like a piranha, like, we don't want our staff hiding in a safe room. You know what? You've got to keep the staff safe.
Right.
And a safe room in a house for staff that need, for a client that has one-on-one staffing or 2-on-1. I had a client with 3-on-1 staffing. With a safe room, you can keep that staff safe until other help can come. It's not that expensive compared to a correctional bed ongoing. So I would just say, from a cost savings, from a due process perspective, population that can never be restored, no amount of competency coaching is going to change someone's ability to engage with their defense counsel if they have certain disabilities.
So where are we, folks?
I think we tweak have a program that gets sunset, bring the other departments into it, and somehow leave the language that's not contracted with an entity under DOC.
Right.
But I think Katie needs to do quite a bit of finessing for that. I'll get in there.
That's what we were supposed to do yesterday. And I think it was the end of the day. I said, let's at least get something and we can.
Yeah, this looked like hieroglyphics yesterday. It's so loopy.
Will we be able to get Eric or someone?
Yeah, we've got I would assume Eric's in judicial. I really want to tie this up today to get this language done and get this out of here, because I know Martin is really pushing to get the bill out of his committee later today or tomorrow morning. So we really need to do here. See if there's anything else. That is it with those changes. Think what we need to do, and you said Katie was booked up all morning, right?
Katie
Upstairs.
is, Eric may be available. Would you want to know?
Is he in judiciary?
I don't believe so. It's not on his calendar. It's
Why don't you send him an email and see if he's available to come in, and let me walk down the hall, he might just be sitting in judiciary. So.
he was in there at 9 o'clock.
But he's still there.
You want us to stay live?
Yes, stay live.
Like I'm in charge, people.
You ranking member.
This is your,
Remember, we're live.
this is your opportunity.
It's all gonna go sideways.
I'd like to move to Sunset Private Prisons.
It's been moved. Second.
All in favor?
Discussion, no?
Send this puppy to the floor.
Remember, we're live.
Yeah, a coup d'etat.
I tried to take my run of the room while you were out of the office.
Uh-oh.
Was he in there?
No, he's not in there, so what, see if you can send him an email and
Yeah.
see if he has time to meet. And why don't we take a 10-minute break or so?